Thomas Alarm Solutions. Today we're looking at another crime series, and this is the Rohm RG1422 long rifle. This is your quintessential Saturday night special, the exact kind of gun the 1968 Gun Control Act was going after. The revolver that you see here is of horrendous quality. It is not reliable. It is not accurate. It really has no purpose. I certainly believe in inexpensive firearms. That's not the issue here. The issue is if you're going to have a firearm, it has to be suitable for either self-defense, target shooting, hunting, some sort of legitimate use. This has no legitimate use whatsoever other than shoot and drop. When you look at a self-defense weapon, you have to have reliability. If it doesn't go bang when you pull the trigger, it's not going to save your life. So you can't say it's for self-defense because they literally very rarely work. Horrible issues with timing. The firing pins have a lot of issues, especially with the 22 setting the rounds off. We saw these like crazy in the crime labs. We saw them in different calibers. These are available different calibers, which we're going to go over in a few minutes, some of the different calibers. We're going to talk a little bit about the company. This was a company called Rohm. It was out of Germany. Now, this does have some fame to it. This was used by John Hinckley in his attempt to assassinate President Reagan. And this was also the one that hit Mr. Brady, which, as you well know, the Brady Bill and Coalition to Ban Handguns and so forth. So this does have some notoriety for as far as a crime gun as well. Now, in 1968, the Gun Control Act was passed, and what it did with these is it prevented any firearms from coming in that met a certain criteria. And that was, of course, caliber, size, cost. There were several different point systems that did that. So this was no longer importable. So like many of the companies who imported a lot of these cheap guns, they brought factories into the United States. They imported the parts, assembled them here, and had the frames done here. And their factory was put here in Miami, and they were putting out up to 20,000 of these crap guns per month. It had an MSRP of about $47. They closed their doors in 1986. They had multiple liability suits and so forth, which is the way a lot of these companies had ended, was they went bankrupt because of issues regarding lawsuits against them. Now, they had these in various calibers, 22 long rifle, 25 ACP, to say the 38 Special, 32 Smith & Wesson. They used a zinc alloy frame, which a lot of the crap guns were manufactured out of. They were it's a very cheap material, not very durable. It was double action, single action, so you have a extremely heavy double action trigger pull, and you had a single action trigger pull. Now, to load and unload these was relatively interesting. You had to take the rod in the front, you had to unscrew it, and you would remove the rod. The cylinder will swing out. You would remove the cylinder from the gun, flip it over, and then you would take your rod and you would eject your fire cartridge cases. Then you would drop 6 more in, drop the cylinder back onto the arm, reinsert your rod. Now you have to screw that back in place so it will lock in place, and now you're ready to go again. Now, as you're going to see from the live fire video, many issues. Now, these things here were relatively interesting from a forensic standpoint. When you have revolvers, they don't leave cartridge cases. They stay with the gun. So unless the person drops the gun or is severely mental issues and they reload on the scene and drop cartridge cases, the cartridge cases were relatively useless. Now, if we got the gun and it was fired, there was a lot of ways to determine if they were fired in this gun, because each one of those cylinders is machined, and the machining is very poor. So as you would eject the cartridge cases, it would scrape on the edges, and they would put in a really good pattern around which you could actually identify which cylinder that the cartridge case was fired in. It was a little bit tedious work doing the test and labeling and everything, but you could definitely test that. The firing pins, due to the fact these firing pins would often break, they would often chip. The firing pins were relatively easy to identify in a microscope as well. Bullets, on the other hand, relatively difficult, especially with lead. Lead, as a rule, can be a little bit more difficult due to the fact that it's soft and the heat that it's created, so it can be a little bit more difficult, but still doable. You're a lot more apt to get impact and penetration damage, which means the bullet's damaged once it hits the target. But due to the fact that the rifling everything was very rough, it wasn't too difficult to often match the projectiles as well. These were basically because they're revolvers, you did have the digital database where you would be able to put the projectiles in. There was a method to do it, but it didn't work. And most crime laboratories would not waste the time putting bullets into the digital database because it took forever and it just didn't work. So what 99% of the crime laboratories would do is they would send the gun and the tests back to the police department. If there was an investigative lead that said there's a potential that this gun could have been used in this crime, the evidence would be called back and it would be compared. There's 1% of crime laboratories, the inefficient ones, who would keep an open case file of projectiles, which would mean, for instance, this is a 6 right landing groove, and when you measured the landing grooves, it came out that RG was a potential. You would go through every one of those bullets that was stored in your open case file and do a manual comparison. Very inefficient and very ineffective. Very rarely were any hits done at random like that with these types of guns. You did have very poor plastic grip panels on here. It wouldn't be uncommon for these guns to come in and they would have the grip panels that were cracked. But these were the kind of guns that you literally would use and you would drop. A lot of them were stolen. For the most part, people would not buy these who were serious about self-defense. This was a shoot and a drop gun. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to disagree with me and say, it's a gun. Everybody has rights to self-defense. Again, as I said, and I'll say it before, I'll say it again. If it won't reliably protect you, what purpose does it have? That's the biggest question that I would have to say. Let's take this out to the range and we're going to see how it shoots. The videos speak for themselves on reliability and accuracy. Again, it's a complete garbage firearm. Now, there's a whole family of pistols here. You had the RG-10 22 long, 22 short, RG-24 22 long rifle, RG-23 22 long rifle, 66 SAA 22 long rifle. You had the RG-8, which was 8mm blank, RG-38, which was 38 special, RG-42 25 auto semi-automatic, RG-3 blank 6mm, RG-7 22 long rifle, and 38T 38 special. These were not much better in 38 special or any of the larger calibers or centerfire. Obviously, you have a better ignition because of the fact that it is a centerfire over a rimfire, but everything stands true. Mostly, again, we saw were these little 22s, 22 revolvers. And in both crime laboratories, we saw them. I don't know as much if you're seeing them anymore. just due to the fact that the company's been out of circulation for so long. I think as time has gone by, you've seen a little bit less of them because most of them have been confiscated by police departments and destroyed, which is certainly, it was a public service destroying these things. But they remain a heavily used crime gun. And again, this was the reason for the 1968 Gun Control Act. So I do hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.